Now I have a lot of pictures here, and sometimes it's so many I don't know where to start at. This will give you another point of view. Remember that the engine AF16E or whatever DIO AF23 or whatever else you're using, their blocks may be just a tiny bit different, but this motor is an air pump. You can see where the bearings go right down here. That means that this area right along here has got to be sealed up, and they don't come with the 94th or 2000 ones do not come with gaskets. So I'll show you how to seal that up. You have to seal up the back. This area right here has got to be sealed. So does the oil pump gallery over here, which is right there. And there can be no leaks. If you have any leaks, you'll lose case pressure. And the best way to do it is to get whatever gasket you're using, mate it to your cylinder, and then put the gasket on the engine face and trace out what you need to cut out, and then go slowly from there. And I mean slowly. Now these, I believe, this is a tricky part of cutting 107 cc's. You'll get very close to this bolt hole and this one, and you do not want to break into these bolt hole galleries. You don't want to do that, because that'll weaken the integrity of the studs that go down, and they go down to about right here. But it's just one of those things you have to do. You'll have to cut out these little areas right here, and to get the larger crank to work right. I believe that these little wings they're used for oil splash control, I think. I mean, this is just my take on it. So, and some of the pictures aren't as good as I want them. This is your intake side, and what I do is I open the intake below the CT manifold about 10%. You got to be very careful that you do not take off too much aluminum for the centerpiece, or that you don't go too high. It's very thin up here, or go too high and weaken the structure of the reed valve manifold or the intake of the where the cylinder lays. And I use a Dremel on everything. And if you go nice and slow and use your Dremel, take your time, put on some good music, grab a couple beers, whatever you do to calm yourself down, and just take a little bit of aluminum off, stop, clean it, put your crank in. I use dummy bearings. I'll show you what those are. Here's where your oil plug goes, right here. Right down here. I use an old set of bearings for this side and this side. I call them guide bearings. The bearings are taking a 100th of an inch on the outside and the inside, so that the bearing can fit in the race, the dummy bearing, and the crank can fit in the bearing and be pulled out. That way I use the bearing as a guide to show me exactly how much clearance I have before I put the real bearings in. And here's a look at these. And these are the pins I told you about right here. A stainless steel pin here and here. This is where your bearing goes in the very bottom, right where that shaft is. This shaft right here, like I said, it will come down and open halfway with the bearing, and so your oily gasket's in there and protects it. This right here is where the plug goes, oil plug, and it will go right down to here. Now on your stroker crankshafts, you will not have a gear on it that runs the oil pump, so the oil pump doesn't do you any good. And here's the 155 or the 54 millimeter Charmo cylinder, part of a kit I bought from VT Cycles. Everything I bought from VT. This is how it looks on the block. And you can see this is your boost port, rear boost port. You can see where the stock boost port is very, very small right here. That's why you have to cut the meat out of this area right here, so that when the cylinder or the crankshaft comes around, it forces up fuel to get to the top of the cylinder, and then it pushes the fuel across the top and out for more fuel efficiency. And here's your intake right here, and these are your ports on one side. I hope these pictures are helping. And here's the cylinder laying on the intake side. And as you can see right here, it's not flush, so it's going to take a lot of work. You cannot, I've never done this, but you can't take the steel off the cylinder to make it fit, because you'll weaken the integrity of the cylinder. You need to take the meat off the aluminum to keep your integrity. Here's another look at the so I can get this. Here's the back of the engine right here. And you can see the boost port's got to be cut away on each side. This area right here, this is where the case mates, all the way along the bottom here. Okay, you cannot nick this or screw it up or ruin the integrity of it, because if you do, you're screwed, glued, and tattooed. You're done. So you got to be very careful with that. Or the top mating surface, right up here or up here, where the cylinder fits. Let's see. And I took a number of pictures because I wanted to see if I could get a real close up, and then I could pick out the ones I liked and the ones I didn't like. And then I do a little bit of work here and a little bit of work up here. You have to remember that all cylinders that you get, I don't care where they come from, they're not blueprinted, or they're all designed to be perfect fit if they're blueprinted, but due to production values, these cylinders have a leeway, like all production parts, maybe 5-7%. So you have to custom fit them, which is half the fun. So just be aware of that. Here we have the two-piece 94 to 01. This is a rear chromed. I got that used from VT. I asked them if they had anything like it. They didn't have anything. But Steve went out, and Keeney only went out, and they found me one. And you can see all these really cool little hex bolt heads. They had those too. Now this is your stock crankshaft right here. And this one does come with you can see the gear that runs the oil pump. This is your Fongier 50mm, and it also has one, but a lot of them don't have it because you don't use them. See, and here's your stock one. Now the difference between a stroker crank and a regular crank is that the pin right here is near the edge of the counterweights, and you have your piston arm here. I can't remember the name of it. It's shorter. Your stroker crank will be an inch taller, plus it's set in the counterweights lower, so it gives you more of a stroke. And as you can see, this is a Fongier. Now another thing I want to point out is that with the 94 to 01 cranks, they have a different, it's larger over here than over here. Now when you put your bearings in the cases, your real ones, the bearings will go up to about right here and stop. And then you have to use a puller to pull the crank through the bearing because it's a tight press fit. Then you'll have to do it on the other side. That's why you need those two tools, which are buku expensive. And this will give you an idea of the here's your stroker Fongier, here's your stock, and you can see how much longer this is. And you can see the stock right here. And this I believe is a 44mm, I believe. And this is 50mm in diameter, as far as the diameter of the crank weights. And there's another shot at it. This is a stock crank in the case. You can see how it fits. The stock that comes with every one of the bikes. And what the stroker crank does basically is that maybe it's closer to the top, I don't know. Anyway, it's a longer rod, so the rod's going to go higher, and then when it sucks down into the case, it's going to go lower, and that creates more CC in the cylinder compression chamber, which results in more fuel, a bigger bang, and more power. And you can see that where it's stock. Here's the stroker crank, and that's just a partial fit, and we'll get more onto that in the next one. But what I want to show you here, see, it's not fitting in the bore like it's supposed to. You have to take off so much meat off this side and this side to make it work. Now if you had a 107cc cylinder, you wouldn't have to worry about this or this. You would have to cut your rear boost port, but you wouldn't have to worry about the cylinder fitting on the sides. Okay, we're going to move on to number 3.